Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais with another episode of the Yakking Show. This is the show that brings you actionable business tips and ideas for you to improve your business. And we do that by bringing you expert guests. And today is no exception. Really looking forward to hearing and seeing our guest today. But first, let's introduce co-host Kathleen. Hi, Kathleen. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Peter. Thank you for that. And thank you also very much for tuning into our show. We so appreciate having you. And as Peter mentioned, we do have another special guest with us today. We have the great pleasure of welcoming Angelo Ponzi to the show. Hello, Angelo. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Angelo is the founder and CMO of Craft, C-R-A-F-T. This is a company that provides consulting, fractional marketing, and leadership services that focuses on small to medium-sized businesses. And let's just jump right in. Angelo, what is the single biggest mistake most businesses make with their marketing in these challenging times?
Well, they don't hire me.
Well, there you go.
There we go. We're done. I think when we head into these kinds of times, and recession talk is left and right, what I've seen and during the pandemic, what I saw in the recession of 2008, and I'm a little older, so I've lived through a few other recessions, is marketing is viewed as an expense, not an investment, and therefore to save cash, they start chopping marketing.
That's true.
And there is so much information. And so during the pandemic, I mean, in being candid, when, right in whatever that was, February, March, by April, I mean, every one of my clients just stopped marketing. So I spent the next several months really focusing on education. I did a lot of research. I went back and gathered all this data, wrote these reports and stories and articles about the mistakes that companies have made over the years, and really trying to prove that those that continued to invest during these troubled times, when it was over, and it's always over, the ones that did ended up really coming out on top, and in some cases superseding even leaders that pulled back. And so that was always my biggest counsel, that in these times is don't react, be proactive in how you're doing it, and understanding, my whole concept is you have to understand your customers, you have to understand the market, you have to understand the competition in order to do all the other stuff. So if you don't know that and you just panic, you can put some cash on the bottom line, but at the end of the day, you might have kept your doors open a little bit, but can you keep them open on the other side? And so that's usually my biggest advice. I've already started to talk about that with a lot of my clients, is let's just not stop everything. Let's figure out, what can we continue to do and make sure you're still investing. So when this is over, that your competition hasn't surpassed you.
Yeah, very important. And I think going back a lot further, as you mentioned, of an age to remember previous recessions, if we go back to the Great Depression, there was some glaring examples there of certain industries that kept, or certain businesses that kept advertising when everyone else stopped, and became world leaders, right?
Yep, exactly right.
So, Angelo, on your website, and it's something I agree 100% with you, you say that marketing is more than just tactics. So why then do so many business owners try to implement new tactics and before they get their strategy straight? Why do they go into that trap?
I think it's that, I don't call it a panic, but it's almost like that's what they see and know. When they think marketing, they think tactics. And it's a debate I have all the time. And I sit in these networking meetings with other marketing people, and they all talk about, I'm your website guy, I'm your social media guy. And I start my pitch with, I don't do any of that, but I'm going to make that better by understanding. So, if you're changing your website, you're doing social media, you're doing trade shows and all of these kinds of things, and certainly from a digital standpoint, if I don't know you, how do I talk to you? There's two of you on the screen with me. And I bet the way you both consume information is going to be different, just because of our histories. But if I'm only marketing one message, one way, I'm going to miss somebody. And so I don't think companies understand that. In my consulting with a lot of different companies over the years, it's something I just find. It's like, we have all that stuff. Yeah, but you're not segmented. Your voice, your messaging is different for this audience versus this audience. What's important to them, right? What might be important today to one segment, if I'm talking to a CFO, for example, is very different if I'm talking to an engineer, or if I'm talking to mom about, versus if I'm trying to appeal to a kid. So but companies don't look at that. They just look at, the tactical side, right? The transactional side, and not the strategic, to make them more efficient and better.
So Angelo, what is the benefit to a small business to hire a fractional CMO or chief marketing officer?
Sure. Well, part of it is you're getting, expertise that frankly you couldn't afford. And you're getting that applied to your business. So from a fractional standpoint, I'm bringing, and I'll pick on myself, well, I won't give you my exact number of years, but let's say 30 plus years of experience that you're getting brought to your business, that if you tried to, hire someone like me, you probably just couldn't afford it. And so a lot of times when I walk into smaller businesses, they've got a junior marketing person, if you will, and that person just doesn't have the wherewithal or the experience to really understand all of this. So you're getting all of that, packed into a whatever, 10 hours a week kind of thing. And for me, it's not, I'm not sitting there, having coffee and, shooting the breeze at the water cooler. You're getting 10 hours of my time. And so somebody would ask me, hey, why are you so expensive? And I don't think I'm expensive, but, why are you so expensive? And it's like, it's not about the dollar. It's about, the 30 plus years that's packed into that hour that you get. Right. And so that's really the value that myself and other fractional people, bring to the party.
And as you said, hiring somebody full-time for that particular position would cost way more than hiring somebody that has that kind of expertise. And you get to have them for 10 hours a week because that's all you need. That's an excellent point.
Yeah. And go ahead.
No, I was just going to add to what you were saying, that not only do they get 30 years experience, but they get the depth and breadth of your experience that they probably wouldn't get with one person who's only worked, say, in 3 or 4 different companies or industries. You've had exposure to many different types of industries and different businesses. So you bring all of that accumulated knowledge as well. It's not just years, it's the breadth of it, right?
Well, exactly. I mean, I've literally worked with semiconductor manufacturing equipment all the way to ice cream. I've actually sold ice cream to Eskimos because my clients, Cold Stone Creamery, we put Cold Stone in Alaska. So, but all that experience, to your point, Peter, it comes to bear. That's what we bring to understand the nuances and the messaging and things, just because we have had that experience.
Sure. So when you get a new client, when a client comes to you and says, we need some help in our business, and they probably don't think they need it in the marketing department, first of all, but they might, what's the first area you focus on, Angelo, when you're called in?
Yeah. So I usually start off by trying to understand what they know. what kind of information and data do they have? In some cases, they have a lot of data, but they've never done anything with it. Or they just, they don't think the way I think. So I actually, a few years back, created a marketing assessment that it's more of a business marketing assessment. It takes them through a battery of questions, and it focuses on the audience, both internal and external, right? Most companies don't think about their internal audience as much as they should. No. We look at product. I look at perception in the market. How are you perceived? How do you think you're perceived? How do you want to be perceived? I look at leverageability of your brand. I look at engagement that you've had, and then your various strategy. And so they take them through these questions, and I do this whole thing. And it can be, usually it's senior management, and I've had as up to 15 people from a company actually take this. And what it reveals is where the gaps are, where are things that are not working, where the CEO's rating, at a 5, and the senior VP is rating at a 2. Well, there's gaps. I mean, it is a true story. It was in this particular case, it was about onboarding, and the CEO rated their onboarding program a 5, and the guy in charge of it rated it a 1.
Yeah.
And they looked at each other and said, you think it's a 5? You think it's a 1? And my point was, forget that. You guys have worked together for 22 years.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Now asking this question of each other. So what it does is it brings up all the issues. And one of the reasons I start there is because if I just jumped into planning and there's this misalignment among the group, regardless of what I do, there's going to be not an agreement, right? So I try to
Absolutely.
work for an agreement up front of what we're trying to accomplish, looking for those areas that need to be fixed or don't need to be fixed. Another one I always ask the group. So I do it's a quantitative study, and then I do a qualitative where I interview people. One of my questions is always, you've got 30 seconds in an elevator and you think you see a prospect. How would you describe your business? Guaranteed. If there's 15 people, I got 15 different answers.
Yep. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so that's where I typically start, because again, I need to know where what my foundation is, if you will.
Right.
Sure.
Now,
And sorry, Kathleen, just to press
Okay.
that one, and I can see the advantage of starting like that, because unless you get agreement up front, you at best you're going to get disengagement, at worst sabotage down the line, right? Unless you've got that all sorted out right up front.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kathleen, back to you.
No, but then given what you've just said and all the assessments preliminary assessments that you do with a company, after that, what services then do you provide to these companies?
Sure. So if I look at, I'll call it my kind of standard approach.
Mm-hmm.
It all varies, but typically it starts off with the assessment. What I find in most cases, and I'll just go with most cases, I do a competitive analysis. And so part of that is more focused on competitive messaging. So I kind of deconstruct competitors' websites, I reconstruct them, and I'm looking for what they're saying. I'm looking for gaps. I also do customer interviews. And so now, based on the perceptions, for example, that I've heard, how great we are and all of this, and now I'm actually talking to the customers. So I'm getting client perception, and now I'm getting customer perception. And then I look for areas of issues and things, or what are the important message points? Why would I hire a company like you, for example? And so then I start to see patterns. And so I'll utilize that. And then sometimes we'll do, if there's distributors, we'll do distributors. We'll do, customer intercepts, especially in the consumer world. We might do intercepts. We might do some quantitative studies, things like that. So ultimately, I'm gathering all of that. And then we're also looking at internal data. What do you have? As a matter of fact, we're just doing one this morning with a client. We were looking at how long, what's the sales cycle? And based on all these different data, what's win-loss? Well, it came up in a meeting yesterday that they have 3 years of history in their CRM. I was like, okay, well, I want to see that data. Because now I can see, well, if somebody's saying, hey, it's taking too long, might turn out to be that's the pattern. A client a few years ago, we found out from analyzing their data that they win 33% almost consistently of every proposal that's given. All right. So if I'm given a lot of small proposals, I might win a lot, but that's not going to, yield a lot of money. So how do we change what's the upper funnel? So that all becomes very important. And then ultimately, from that data, then typically I'll go into building their messaging strategy. So their story. And so we'll figure out what their story is. And I use the story brand, we call it story script, where the client, the company is the guide, the prospect is the hero, and how do I guide them to the right conclusion? And then we'll work on all that messaging, whether it's overarching, whether it's sub-messaging. And then lastly, we head into building a strategic marketing plan. And I'm a holistic marketer, so I depending on the organization, I want to know process. I want to know if there's manufacturing. I want to know about inventory. I work very closely with the sales departments, and because ultimately, I'm the top, they're the middle. They got to do the closing. I can get them there, but I don't do the closing. So very holistic in my approach. And so when we put a plan together, if it's touching on all the departments and things that I need, I go back a few years. I'm in a sales meeting, and the CEO says to the head of sales, what do you want today? What's your biggest wish? And he goes, $1 million order. And everybody starts clapping and screaming. And I went, time out. to make a point, I said to the head of manufacturing, if we got that $1 million order today, could you fulfill it? And the answer was no.
Yeah.
I don't have the inventory. I don't have the, I'm over capacity right now, whatever the story was. And so by knowing all of this, knowing process, working again with a client, we found internally that the process is too long, the approval process of things. So now we're working to shrink that process. Why? Because we've actually lost customers because it took too long. They wanted a quick turn. Our process was too long to get through. So I really dig in. So is that strategic from a marketing standpoint and working with the team, not just websites and social media and tactics. That, people hate this when I say it, but I could actually care less about that.
Right.
If I don't know all of this, that's not going to work. So that's where I start. That's my typical process.
Interesting.
Wow, very comprehensive. Really, really good. So before I move on, something always intrigues me. One of the management courses I did years and years ago, the very wise person who was teaching us said, let me get this right, culture trumps strategy every time. And certainly from my years in the corporate world, I found that to be very, very true. So do you find as an external guy coming in, you get a lot of resistance, or do you manage to overcome that right up front?
I would say in most cases, and I agree, and culture is definitely driven from the top, and it's important that it really reaches all aspects of the organization. It depends. I've had pushback on things that we're doing, but that's also a learning process, right? It's understanding some of the nuances that we have to adapt to. But I would say in most cases, we're able to overcome any resistance and get adaptability once they see that, I'm not trying to take their job, or I'm not trying to put them out of a job, right? I'm just trying to make everything better. And so in a lot of my initial engagements, I spend, if they're close or even online, I spend a lot of time. I have a local client. Most of my clients actually are out of the state, but I have a local one. I go into their offices, 15 hours a week, 2 days, on Mondays and on Wednesdays. So I'm actually present. So I'm in the meetings. I'm there. I'm having this dynamics. I have a client back east. I've been with him for 2.5 years out of Boston. And I'm probably on a Zoom or a phone call with him every day. So I'm not, hire me, I'll disappear for 90 days and come back with all this wonderful stuff. I mean, it's very collaborative, because then that gets me in a framework. They understand who I am, my thinking, my process, and how I can contribute. And that, I think, helps bring all the barriers down, that I'm just not, coming in and saying, here, do what I just said. There's a rationale behind it all.
Yeah, that's good to hear. So here's one that a lot of people are talking about at the moment: AI, artificial intelligence, Chat GPT. So are you getting a lot of questions about that from your clients? Are they worried about it, threatened, excited? What's the buzz?
I think that the things I've heard a lot about it from clients is about, hey, they can help write our blogs for us. I go, we're going to do our content. And I said, yeah, there's some value to that. I have a friend who's used it to kind of prove a point that, hey, we can write a business plan with it. But for me, it's going out, gathering information, and coming back.
Yep.
Unless I can get the actual source and I validate that source, I don't know if it's been plagiarized someplace else. I don't know if it's good data. I don't know if it's good recommendations. So my counsel is, if you're really interested in this, let's use it for inspiration, maybe to better understand some topic ideas and things we can take off on. I don't think it's there for me yet from a Chat GPT standpoint. However, on some of the tools that I'm using that are AI driven, they've been proving to be pretty fantastic. So I use a database tool and it's cool. I can tell you the name if you want me to tell you what it is.
Sure.
Always interesting.
Yeah, so I promote them. It's called Seamless AI.
Seamless AI. Okay.
And what they do is, you can go in and you can search, and it'll bring up, whatever, a list of people, let's say in Cold Stone Creamery, and it'll bring them all and all their titles. And then I can basically hit the button. I can hit all, or I can hit go find. It'll actually go out, search the internet, go to LinkedIn, and come back with validated information, their emails, their phone numbers, and all this stuff. So
wow.
and it's current versus some of the other
Yeah.
databases that, they call you once a year and they validate you're there. So that
Sure.
tool has been really effective. And then I've been searching over the last several months for a visitor ID tool. So somebody going to your website, it'll flag who you are. Somewhere 25, 30%, some claim up to 70 if it's consumer. But most of them were using reverse IP. So you might get the name of the company, but not the individual. There's some new tools out. One that we're looking at is called Simply Intel. Another one's called Lead Post, that actually using AI, similar to Seamless, will go out and actually tell you who the person was that came to your website. So
Wow.
so we're testing that. And one of my clients, we were just talking about a little while ago. I mean, they've gotten like 42 leads and identified 42 people that have looked like, CEOs of companies and stuff that they can sell to just in the last week.
That's useful.
It doesn't identify everybody, but so AI, I see those kinds of tools becoming very valuable. I'm a little skeptical on the writing part, but
what was the name of that last one you mentioned after the Seamless AI, the last one you mentioned?
Yeah, so there's Seamless AI is the database.
Yeah.
Simply Intel.
Simply Intel.
Simply
and
Intel.
The other one's called Lead Post. So those are using kind of an AI approach to identifying who's been visiting your website.
Oh, must look into that. Well, thank you.
Yeah, that's very useful. Good.
Angela, I just want to switch gears a little bit because I'm always interested in our guests' personal story and their personal history to find out how they ended up where they are today. So you have many years of experience in business, but tell us about your career journey and what led you to start your own business, basically.
Sure. It goes back to my parents. They had their own, so upstate New York, both from big families, big Italian families, and my dad was the oldest boy. He actually quit school in the 8th grade to go work because he had to make money. He had 13 brothers and sisters. My mom was one of the youngest of a similar family, but they, as far back as I can remember, they really owned their own business. I tell this story. It's actually a book that I'm working on, and I did a blog on it. It's called The Number Lessons Learned from the number one plumber and the number two industry. And my father, when I was maybe about 7, if I was good, which wasn't very often, I got to watch TV and eat off a TV tray, right? While I was eating in the living room, which was special. And I remember this particular night, my father had all the trays. And I didn't understand why. I just knew that I couldn't eat where I wanted to. But I later learned he was educating himself. He was becoming a master plumber. And so he started his own business. So for the next 40 years, he ran his own business. I saw it every day. So I had an opportunity as a kid to work in a lot of different jobs. Paper factories, building parks by the side of the road, historical park, all these different jobs, which I knew I did not want to do in life, as well as being a plumber. But it showed me the independence and how you could kind of take charge. So actually, when I finished school and I came to California, I wanted to, as a marketer, I love the movies. And I thought this would be great. If I could get in the movie business and be in marketing, I'd be in heaven. Didn't quite work out that way. Ended up in getting into an advertising agency. So that's kind of sent me in the advertising agency world. But my second job, we were doing a lot of television commercials. And so I got friendly with the folks. And long story short, at about age 23, I started my first business. And it was called started the Film Cannery. And we had this brilliant idea. I didn't know anything. These guys were like 20 years older than me, that we were going to bring Hollywood to Orange County, California. Didn't quite work out. We spent most of our time in Hollywood. But the business took off. And within 8 months, it was broke. It was done, kaput. And, now I spent all my savings and kind of lessons learned, I put too much faith in my partners. I just believed everything they told me. Just my upbringing, you were always honest and direct. And, I just assumed what they're telling me was true. I was, wet behind the ears, so to speak. But that didn't deter me. And literally from 23, by the time I hit 27, I did it again. This time it was my own marketing firm. And so my time in the advertising business, I was coming to, I tried to buy an agency that I was in, and they didn't want to sell. And I'll make the stories really short. But I had been talking to potential other agencies that I was competing against. And I said, what if you could have someone like me, a strategic planner or researcher on your team? They went, oh yeah, we'd all hire you. Of course, when I broke away and started my company, none of them hired me. But I eventually got going, and that was the foundation. So I was a resource, and I grew that over the next, and then I eventually morphed into being an advertising agency, and then over the next 13 years, I grew that and grew my staff, grew the clients, and then eventually I sold that to a much bigger firm who bought my creative partners and me, and we started another advertising agency. And then in between all those, I'd been, working as a consultant and going into clients and being their CMOs or their VP of marketing. So I've been having a lot of experience. So that actually wasn't new to me when I started this. So I'd done it before. But having that opportunity to go back and forth between client and agency, having the opportunity to have grown a couple businesses, and having one significantly fail, a few others that never got off I call it, litter on the side of the road, right? A lot of dead bodies as you're driving along because, they don't all work. But I was fortunate to have a few. So all that gave me, that tremendous experience. I actually bought a restaurant franchise, much to my wife's chagrin. That, of course, I still don't live that down. It only lasted 6 months. Another long story. Got out very quickly. Realized that was not for me, but I was convinced it was. So I dabbled, I tried. And again, the experience, I've worked in semiconductors, I worked in manufacturing, I worked in the oil and gas industry, I worked in ice cream, I worked in apparel and restaurants. And so all that knowledge and experience, has allowed me to do what I did. So I started this in 2014 after working actually in a really unique market research firm. And so again, was my focus. I think I was back ready to go do it again. And so that was, and having done it, were people like questioning, oh my God, do I start a business? I had already done it several times. So I was like, yeah, let's go do it. And my wife supported me. And so that's where we're at. And here we are almost 10 years later.
Oh,
wow.
fantastic.
Wonderful. Very good. Oh, that's great to hear. Very good. So that leads straight into my next question. And from what you just told us, you're well qualified to answer this one. And it's one that fascinates me. And that's, Angelo, in your experience, is there one habit or characteristic or mindset that differentiates people who become successful from those that remain average or stay in a rut all their lives? Is it one thing, or is it more complicated?
I think it's more complicated than that because business is complicated. We say business, it's not simple at all.
No.
And so there's a lot of different facets as a business owner that you have to pay attention to. And I was just talking to somebody the other day about this. They said, what would you would tell somebody? And I said, one of the first things, they got to understand their numbers. Most business owners, and I'll get some hate mail on this one, but they don't understand their financials. They don't understand the story that the financials are telling them. So as a small business owner, it becomes important. It isn't about the hour or I just got paid for, right? It's about how much time did I really invest? If I've got a project and I think it's going to take X amount of hours and that's my project cost, it's up to me to manage that. When I had the advertising agency and we would do quotes for whatever, an ad, and the creative director would say, it's going to take $3,000 of creative time, and then he spends $6,000. Well, I just lost all the profit before I even finished the job, right? So it's really paying attention to your numbers and understanding what's driving the business, and understanding how you drive more and more business to the bottom line. So I think that's one of the key things.
Sure.
And then it's back to taking my own advice. Who's my audience? Who am I trying to market to? Because I have a very aggressive marketing program. I'm blogging. I have a social campaign going on. My website. I network like crazy, which is another thing I not really had done, I'd say, prior to COVID as much as I do now. I probably am in networking meetings, whether in person or online, I bet 5, 6, 7 hours a week. So it's almost a full day of my time. And so I'm out talking and getting people to understand who I am. And that's everybody from not only sales potential partners who are really good referrals for me. But I mean, guys that sell insurance and, and lawyers. And why? Because their customers also have problems, and trying to get them to understand what are questions that you can listen for that might trigger that I'm the right guy is the same that I do. And so that has become extremely important. So, from that standpoint, from a business owner that's trying to grow their business, I mean, you've got to be out there. You just can't, be remote and think it, what's the field of dreams, right? Build it and they will come. Yeah. They don't always come.
No, it doesn't work like that. No, thank you. That's so important. Just a quick one on numbers. I know that I'm no longer in any sort of consulting at all, but until not long ago, I was continually amazed at how many business owners and corporate employees could not work out their break-even point of how many products or hours of consulting time they needed to sell each month to break even. It's something that was drummed into me in my business training generations ago, and yet recently a lot of people still couldn't work that one out. And to me, that's one of the most basic metrics. If you don't know what you've got to turn over to break even, you've got a problem, right?
Well, exactly. It gets back to if you're going to, keep the lights on, so to speak, or if you're bringing people on, and you need to know what that is. And so that, that is also a target, right? If I know that I'm going to have 4 people working on projects with me, and I know I have to buy some information or whatever it happens to be, I need to know what that cost is going to be. And ultimately, what I need to do all of this. And then, then at the end of the day, you want some money that you can stick in the bank and, continue to drive the business. And so that becomes really important, to your point, especially if you get into manufacturing.
Yep.
You gotta look at that, spoilage and things like that. And you have to understand, labor cost, and depending on where you are in the country. So there's a lot of factors that really go into it. And it's really, really important that you understand all that before you start pricing products and things.
Right. Well, we
Kathleen,
are
back to you.
Yes, we are out of time now, Angelo, unfortunately, but please tell us how people can contact you.
Sure. The best way really is LinkedIn. They can look me up on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn has all my information as far as my website. So that's the simplest place to go to get that. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I publish blogs, I have videos, and then I also have a newsletter, comes out twice a month. If they would love to subscribe, I'd love new subscribers. And my whole part in that is really a lot about education and trying to be thought-provoking to get people to think. And I don't do a lot of selling there, but it's more about education and trying to bring awareness to to better marketing, building better brands. There's my tagline.
Yeah,
excellent.
Good one. Angelo,
Thank
thank you very much. That was really good. I really enjoyed that.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you guys. It was a great conversation. Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to your audience and to you guys.
Pleasure was ours. Thank you, Angelo. And thank you also very much again for tuning into our show. And if anyone is interested in being a guest on our show, please visit us at theyakkingshow.com. All you need to do is click on the contacts tab, where you will find a short application form. We'd love to hear from you. And please, if there are topics that are of interest to you, let us know. We have access to many experts on this show, and hopefully we can help you out. Until next time, everyone, take care. Bye-bye.